you and I had conversations with different clients on different coasts. So you're out on the West Coast and I'm here in the Midwest, and we were talking with our clients who are actually all over the world. And you had this insight that about how people are thinking about how they matter and why they matter to people. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
If I think back to when we started the business, Storyforge, in 2014, we both had these beliefs that were informed by previous businesses we'd worked in or worked for. And we were convinced, and we had strong convictions, that there had to be more to business than just this cutthroat pursuit of profit alone. Like we both felt that the businesses had a bigger purpose. And so when we started the business, Storyforge, we focused 100% on trying to help businesses figure out, well, what is that purpose beyond just profitability? And we did that because we knew that, or we believed it, and it took us some time to firmly prove that out with clients, that if a business mattered and had a bigger purpose in the lives of those that they served, it would tend to play a bigger part in those stakeholders' lives. Employees would feel more loyal, customers would come back to it again and again, and the business would move from being a commodity selling something to a partner that was maybe part of your life. And that wasn't an audacious idea. It turned out that we've always sought meaning and purpose. And so for the past, six years, we've been focused on that, helping businesses find that purpose, that meaning, so that they can connect with those that they serve and ultimately achieve their goals and achieve their vision. Now we find ourselves in this new position where it can seem like nothing is important anymore. The world could end tomorrow, and we're hearing nothing but horrifying numbers of those that are contracting coronavirus and passing away from it. And it can feel meaningless. Why bother? Why should we do this? Why am I turning up every day to work? Or who cares anymore what we buy? And so it has become painfully obvious that never has it been more important for businesses to figure out now what their meaning is and how valuable or meaningful they are in the lives of those that they serve. Because we have never needed many businesses less. In our quarantine, in our self-isolation, we have found ourselves purchasing less, certainly dining out less or not at all. And we've started to find a way of life that has required fewer and fewer of those things maybe that we used to purchase more frequently. So I'm convinced that the businesses that are going to survive and the businesses that are going to ride this wave and that are going to end up being stronger and actually have a greater impact in the long term are those that right now are not just lamenting how times have changed, but are figuring out who their stakeholders are, who are those that they serve, what is it that they need, and at the intersection of what those people need, those stakeholders need, and their skill set, how are they how are they combining those things together? How are they aligning behind a clear meaning and purpose that's going to help those that they serve, so that when times are good again, we know where we're going to spend our money with those businesses that were meaningful to us when we needed them most.
So what this meaning sounds like such a big idea, right? Such a big term. Can you break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces for us? So how does a business actually discover this meaning? I mean, is it a marketing campaign? Is it go hire a PR firm to put together an ad campaign? Where does it really start?
We're all looking for something bigger. We may not always realize it, but we are searching for some kind of purpose in our lives through where we work or where the things we buy or the brands we wear, the cars we drive. They all say something about us. We're all searching for some kind of position in the world, place in the world, meaning to connect to something that we feel part of, bigger than the product. Far too many businesses are focused on selling the product or the service, and they don't realize that people are only using the product or service as a vehicle towards this greater outcome that they want in their lives. A very simple example and a very stereotypical example, sadly, of me, an Irish person. Yesterday, Melinda, my wife, and I, we walked one block to an Irish pub that has a little open order window, and you can order in that window a pint of Guinness to go if you order a little bit of food. So they'll give you a little basket of fries, and they'll give you 2 pints of Guinness, and we can walk one block to our house, and you can take this Guinness home. We went there not because we were thirsty, not because we craved Guinness, but because we craved a little bit of a connection to Ireland. And we went there, and 2 pints of Guinness gave us that connection. We could have had alcohol elsewhere. We could have had our thirst satiated with a glass of water, but we were searching for a little bit of something deeper. So we went and we walked and we bought these pints of Guinness because we felt like we wanted to be thrown back to the times we enjoyed in Ireland. So we had a deeper meaning in that purchase. And I would argue that every human is doing something like that when they've moved beyond having their basic needs met. So once we've eaten once we've have enough food and we have somewhere to sleep, we're looking for something a little bit more. So how can businesses figure out what that is? There are universal truths about us as humans that have never changed. We need to belong. We need safety. We need security. We need love. There are things we need that have been true since time immemorial. The successful businesses that I know that we've had the pleasure of working with over the years have figured out that is what people will pay a premium for. That's what people will go out of their way to find. And that's what people will tell their friends about when that need is met through a business. So how we typically do that with our clients is we need to understand from the client's perspective, what is it that their stakeholders need? First of all, who are their stakeholders and what do they need? And you and I used to joke a lot about marketing agencies that would come to the table of a business and sit down for an hour or two in a boardroom with the owners and crank out the story of a business, the vision, the purpose, the values, by putting nice words on whiteboards and arguing over what the nice words were until they found the nicest words. And then they all high-fived. And then they wondered why the marketing campaign didn't work or why the business was still stuck in the doldrums. We know that it's deeper than that. We know that the business is just one piece of it and the founders are just one piece. So our first step is understanding who we serve and then understanding what it is that they need. What keeps them up at night? What are they struggling with? What are the things that would make their life better, would make their life more meaningful, would help them achieve their goals? And if we first understand that, irrespective of what we as a business do or how we or what we sell, if we first know the problems that are out there, we then get to look at our skill set, our resources, our time, our interest, and decide, is there an intersection between those two?
Yeah.
And what we've found historically is that where those two meet, the things we're really good at, the things we're best at, the things that drive us, and the things that people need and the things that drive them, where those two meet, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. You're talking about all of these different people. It just struck me. I was on first thing this morning with one of our clients who's a CEO, and his clients are all over the world. They're in so many different time zones, and his people are all over the world in many different time zones. Yeah. And we've been talking with his staff. We've been talking with his leadership team. We've been talking with vendors and partners that he has. And we've got a pretty good picture of where they're really strong and what they're best at, what their superpowers are, and where some of their weaknesses are that they need to shore up. But we haven't yet talked with their clients. And he was very anxious this morning. He really wants to know what we've learned, and he wants to hear the results of all of that work to reach out to these different stakeholders and understand what their needs are, their bigger needs, how they're solved by this company, and what needs might be out there that they haven't even thought about or articulated. And we just can't get there without talking with his clients. And it reminded me of that same story about the boardroom and the, just asking yourself as the founder and CEO, what do I think, is only one tiny little piece of the picture. And until we complete that stakeholder map and have that understanding of all the stakeholders, we really can't actually understand that meaning. We'll just be stabbing in the dark. Right.
Yeah. Is there any point in being really good at something if there's no problem for it to solve? And then so we don't want to be a solution looking for a problem. Right. We're trying to understand what are the problems that are out there so that we could determine, is there one or more of those problems that we're trying to solve? And I'm having that conversation with a client right now where there are so many things they could do and so many skills they have, an unbelievably talented group of people that have had that are struggling to nail down the thing they want to focus on. Now they have all of the stakeholder feedback. They know the problems that are out there. Now they're actually at the point of narrowing their focus to say, well, I know we can solve 8 of those problems. you know what, the thing that's most meaningful right now, let's narrow that down to, okay, now we're down to 3 problems. And now they're at that stage of trying to identify the 3 or the 1 or the 2 that they're going to focus on 100%. But they know enough about the problems that are out there to know what best matches their interest levels, their beliefs, their skill set, their resources, so that they can address those problems. This meaning thing is, like, I went for a long walk yesterday because I'm trying to get my head around this. Since this all started, this coronavirus hit us, I've been, you and I have had this conversation about just pausing to think. The Japanese proverb of, don't just do something, stand there. Because I want to understand what's going on here, what's truly happening, and what is it that people really need. We may have provided a service for the last 6 years, but is that still what's needed, or are we talking about it the right way? Mm-hmm. And the realization that I had from my kicking the dirt on the walk was, it's always been about meaning. It's always what people have sought. If we now move away or don't focus on that as being the core element of how we can help, so how we can be meaningful is to help businesses be meaningful to those that they serve. If we move away from that, I think we're moving away from the thing that people are yearning for now. I think there has never been more of a need for things like community, for connection, for safety, for security, for love, when so much that was certain 6 weeks ago is now uncertain. And I don't think it matters what you sell, whether you're business to business or business to consumer, or whether you are a one-man or one-woman show or a large multinational organization. There is an outcome to your work, or a potential outcome to your work, that does actually alter for the better if you're doing it right, or you actually do have value. Your work does alter somebody's life for the better. And if that's forgotten about in the communication, or if that's overlooked in terms of how you organize your business, or if that doesn't become the thing you're all about, I think that you're missing an opportunity to build the connection now when people need it most, so that when this world goes back to being as crazy as it was before, where we didn't see as many examples of the care that so many businesses are exhibiting, if we don't do that now, I think we lose the opportunity of losing the connection with the customer who can just write off business. No, they don't care. They're just in it for the money.
Yeah. There's an interesting correlation, I think, in that process of a business really looking at themselves and thinking about the things that are completely essential. What is that problem that they solve? What is that essential human need that they're addressing? Yeah. It's something that the business has to do internally and have that clarity first. But it's also a great way of thinking about how to communicate externally. Once you have that, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about how we as consumers have changed, and why that essentialism, that essential truth is the most important thing to people now because of the changes that we've been through in the last 2 months, and how we think consumers will be acting and behaving in the next year.
I think 2 things have changed. The first is the depriving of consumers of the things they once had. The ability to walk into a retail store, the ability to walk into a bar, the ability to walk into a restaurant, those things are gone now for the moment. So there has been, because those things have been taken away, there has been a reimagining of need from a consumer's perspective. Well, what do we really need? In the absence of walking into the store, do we need to order that stuff online, or was it just not important anyway? Can we cook at home more? I know we're cooking 7 nights a week. We didn't cook 7 nights a week before. We can still order takeout, but we're not. We're cooking. So these things have been taken away. So as these things have been taken away, I think the flip side is there's been a reimagining about necessity and need. What is and what's important. So if we have to reimagine where we shop and how we survive, I think we start to subconsciously or consciously reimagine everything in our lives, or rethink how we've done it. And I don't think that coming out of this, the businesses that continued to market and sell and position how they always have will get the attention of those who've reimagined what's important and have rethought what's important. And we all have stories of businesses or individuals that did a good turn for us once 20 years ago and we still talk about it, or a business that we respect because of a position they took and we tell everybody about it. Now multiply that by 1,000 good stories that we're hearing of businesses that are stepping up today, or 1,000 bad stories of businesses who are just tone deaf to this and have one focus, and that's the bottom line. So I think that we as business owners have to remind ourselves, or we have to convince ourselves that it's not the same out there anymore, and that pursuit of profitability, if that was the goal historically, for many businesses it was, for others it wasn't. If pursuit of profitability alone is the goal, don't be surprised when nobody cares to hear those goals that you have. I just think that there's going to be a culling because we're going to be so ruthless as consumers about who we do business with that we need to know why. I think we just need to know why we do business with you.
Yeah. And is there a correlation as well to employees? So a lot of folks, I think, are in a short-term space rather than a long-term space when it comes to thinking about staff and employees and engagement. How does that same thinking apply inside the business?
We know from our work that employees of every generation have sought meaning from their work. Some have been more vocal about it than others, and some generations will quite vocally scream and demand it, and oftentimes will leave a business that doesn't have alignment with their beliefs or their values or their purpose. So now layer in a global pandemic and a removal of most employees from their offices. So there are many millions of employees now are at home wondering why. Why do I do this? Now the walk to work has probably shortened. It now goes from the bed to the kitchen table as opposed to the hour commute. Yet still, if there was a search for meaning before and a demand to know why I should devote a percentage of my life to this business and its pursuits, imagine what it's like now when you're not connected closely to a culture in terms of proximity, but also there seems to be something far greater taking over the world. It can seem like there's, for many, and we've heard this from our clients, we've heard employees ask, well, what's it all about? Why is it worth it? So I think there's an opportunity now for businesses to put their stake in the ground and be very clear about the world they want to see, the rallying cry for their business, that motivating, inspiring call to action and call to proverbial arms that says, we're going to do this. We're going to change the world. The world we see out there is not the world that we like. It's not the world that drives us. We have a bigger vision for the world. Not everyone can see it yet, but we can. And we're going to get up every morning and stay up late just to focus on this. If a business doesn't have that in place, then, and they don't have to, of course, but if they don't have that in place, it is, I think, it shouldn't be a surprise when those employees who need purpose and meaning the most abandon the ship for another ship that seems to have their course set and seems to have that direction very obviously in place. So we're all looking for this. We just need to strip away business and get back to our biological needs. We are wired to survive, and we're wired for meaning, and we're wired for safety and security, and a belief that we matter. And we need to be reassured in every aspect of our day and our lives, and whether that's from our spouses or our friends or our family or from the place we work. I think we've become even more hyper vigilant now about where in our life is there something that doesn't matter? Because if it doesn't matter, is there any space for it? Because we could all be dead tomorrow. You know, that's the new realization I think that employees are having.
Yeah, there was an interesting study. I'm not going to get the numbers right, but if you look at the Gallup polls of employee engagement, and we know how incredible those numbers were, the number of employees who are disengaged from their jobs. If you take a slice of that and look just at nonprofit organizations, nonprofit organizations always traditionally had much higher levels of engagement. So employees that were more engaged, that were giving more at work, more time, more energy, more extra effort, and were often being paid less, working with fewer resources in much more difficult conditions. And we know that those employees and that level of engagement that exists in nonprofits, you might say, well, of course, they're mission-driven, they're purpose-driven organizations. People go into nonprofits not to make money, but to find that meaning and actually matter and have an impact on the world. But those same numbers apply to for-profit businesses that also give their employees meaning, that give their employees purpose, that give their employees something bigger that matters than profitability. I remember years ago working in a business where we were working on a big employee event, and we were gonna share an inspiring message of why we all needed to hunker down and work for the next quarter. And the most inspiring messages this particular leader could come up with were ones of margin and profit and stock price and numbers that really didn't mean anything outside of a small group of individuals whose entire compensation was pegged to those numbers. So it has to be something bigger than that. We've seen that over and over again, and now, more now than ever before, I think we're going to be demanding it on the for-profit and the nonprofit side.
The nonprofit side is a great example. I firmly believe that those who work for nonprofits are not very different from those who work for for-profits. They've just had an earlier realization that they want to be satisfied and find meaning in their work. And those that are driven earlier on in their careers, perhaps, or at any stage of their careers, by money alone or title alone, eventually, hopefully, get to the realization that it's not about that, is it? Still not happy. And so there's a lot we can learn from nonprofits. Maybe not always their business models that are always starved for cash, but there's a lot we can learn about how motivated, what motivates people. And it is to solve a problem. It is to get out of bed. It is to do something bigger than just make the money or have that great computer or that bigger car.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how this is applied, Barry. So once a business has really honed in on their meaning, they've done the work to understand the needs of all of their stakeholders and how they fill those needs. They've found, as you said before, that intersection of this real human need in the world and their unique ability to fill that need. So once they have this insight about their meaning, what then? Is it just having the insight and there's some intrinsic value to the leaders of the business understanding that, or is there more that needs to be done with that realization and that understanding?
Well, it's just the first step, isn't it? The determination, the articulation, the discovery, the realization of our real meaning, the real reason we're in business, the bigger thing. Of course, the hard work then begins, because if that's the truth, then shouldn't everything be aligned with it, both internally and externally? Shouldn't our team be able to make decisions that way? Shouldn't we be able to evaluate business opportunities and initiatives and pursuits through the lens of this new meaning? Because ultimately the meaning is made up of a number of elements. It's our vision for the world beyond just our business. It's our purpose, our beliefs, the how, our mission, the how we're going to go about that. So the sum of all these things become this meaningful story of the business. But that has to inform internally how we think and behave, and externally how we think and behave. So internally, of course, it's our organization, it's how it's structured, it's how we decide on projects, it's how we hire, it's how we fire, it's how we evaluate, it's how we determine product lines and services. And externally, then it's how we tell that story, isn't it? It's how we ensure that it is communicated in a way that demonstrates clearly how meaningful we are to those specific stakeholders that we serve. So the danger here would be to think that this is just a marketing exercise, that it's a campaign. We need a campaign for coronavirus, quick, spin it up. No, it's rather an ethos, isn't it, of longer term thinking. That if the meaning is correct, like if we've hit on this thing that is truly meaningful, because we know enough about our stakeholders to know, oh no, they've told us this is what matters to them. Great. Well, that's probably going to matter to them for a long time.
Yeah.
So how is everything that we do aligned to prove that we mean what we say and we say what we mean.
Yeah.
And do what we mean at every stage. So that's really kind of like a root and branch analysis of the organization to see what we've done historically that no longer fits and what we must do going forward in order for it to fit.
Yeah. And there's something interesting about how to then, which is some of the work we also do with our clients, is how to seed that thinking in the organization. As one of my current CEO clients says, how do we inoculate the organization with this insight? There were two examples that came up this week for me that I thought I might share. One, I get my sponges and my cleaning supplies from this company out in, I think, California, called Grove Collaborative. So they're all organic. I think my sponges are made from the bark of a tree. It's not plastic. It's no chemicals. And I got my shipment from them. I get one, every couple of months on schedule. And something that I ordered wasn't right. So I emailed them back, their regular customer service line. I said, hey, I got bottle A and I wanted bottle B. How can I return this? And in the reply, the customer service agent said, we're a company that believes in sustainability and the importance of that. It's one of the core beliefs. And so I'm going to ask you not to try to return it. Just keep that bottle. And I've given you a credit so that you can order the right bottle next time. And thank you for shopping with us and for understanding that, this is who we are as a business. That business now has my business forever. Because in fact, I ordered the wrong bottle. When I did the research, I'm sure this customer service agent did. When I looked at it later, I realized it was my mistake. But the beliefs were so strong that this customer service agent felt empowered to make a $15 decision that's now going to keep me as a customer for probably hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year, because of a belief, because of an understanding that everyone in that business has about who that business is and why they're important.
And you're telling everybody about that. You're going to share that story with everybody who listens.
Absolutely. I've just shared it with everybody that's on this live stream. So also I spoke with another of our clients yesterday that's been around for about 90 years. And we did work with them last year to help them find that meaning and discover that meaning and articulate that meaning. And with the disruption of the past 2 months and everything that they've had to do in their business, the chief people officer of the business said to me yesterday, Haley, all of the things that you and Barry have been pushing us to do, the changes that you've been pushing us to make, they've all happened. We've started all of them in the last month and a half because we were so focused on what we did before and how things worked before and the way we were organized before that we couldn't see our way out of it. And this crisis has given their team an opportunity to do things differently, to think about things differently, using that framework and that meaning as a filter for their thinking. And they've been able to make changes that they didn't think were possible 3 or 4 months ago.
It's remarkable how complex we make business, and we forget that business is all about, it's a voluntary exchange of goods and services in return for money, but we tend to buy from people we trust and we like. And you've just shared an example of you bought from a business initially because you believed in what they believed, like sustainability. And then when something went wrong, admittedly your own fault, they shared back the beliefs that reinforced why you buy from them in the first place. Is it any more complicated than that?
Yeah.
We have beliefs and we have a good product and service. We're looking for people who don't just need the product and service, but who share our beliefs. Can we do business together at a price that is agreeable to both of us? Fantastic. But we lose that in the sometimes the necessary complication, but maybe it's overcomplicated in this rush to marketing and the tactics and the tools and the things that we think are important. But if they mask that most simple, fundamental observation, everything else is just futile and fruitless, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is the thing I think that has occurred to me as I've been talking with our clients over the last week, is that you can't write a standard operating procedure for everything. So this box that came to me from Grove, not only did this whole customer service interaction happen, but the box itself, someone with a Sharpie had written a smiley face on the box and a little note that said, "Stay healthy and well," an exclamation point. So whoever boxed that at the Grove offices had made this decision to make a little note. Now, maybe that's in an SOP manual somewhere, but I'm guessing not. I'm guessing it's just
Right.
the ethos that has come from this insight that they've had about who they are and why they do what they do.
We've talked in the past about businesses whose employees all they look like they work there, and I'll explain that. Like, they look like, and I don't mean by the color of their skin or their age or their literally or even their qualifications, but there's a demeanor about people who work in an organization, and we've observed in great organizations that great organizations attract great people, and they all tend to have a demeanor about them that is behavioral rather than anything else. We've talked about with Jenny's Ice Cream. People look like they work at Jenny's Ice Cream. It's like they look like they are people who like to be serving ice cream in an ice cream shop. They like to engage with people and they like to chat, and they look like they share beliefs, which is a crazy concept. But it's true. Like, Southwest Airlines talks about how they don't hire for skill, they hire for attitude. People who already believe the Southwest way, like they believe that, they act that way in their lives. Now we just want them in our company acting that way because they're already aligned. We'll train them on how to do their job. Yeah, that's the bit to your point where you can't script that, but you can attract the people who will behave that way if you first talk about how you like to behave and think.
Yeah.
Not just, hey, we pay $8 an hour. We would like people to apply for this job who need $8 an hour. Well, you'll get people who want that, but do you want people who also share your beliefs and might go a little bit further? And maybe it's not just about the pay once their basic needs are met.
Yeah, it's almost, if you act and think like a commodity, you will attract commodity. Even from an employment brand standpoint, it's what I think is also interesting. I think you found this as well, but I find that most people, and by extension most leaders, and by extension most businesses, have a hard time sometimes really understanding what they're really good at. What are they better at than anybody else? They often focus on the how of what they do, the industry that they're in, the product they create. Oh, it's the best product. We create the best whiskey. We make the best sweater. But there's something that differentiates them, something that speaks to that value and that meaning that's more than just something tactical, and that's a how. And it's almost always impossible to see it on your own. Once you have that insight, you can develop that insight, but it's really hard to see it because often our superpowers, we don't think are superpowers. So, Superman doesn't think it's remarkable that he can lift a car because it's easy for him. And whatever business you're in, whatever service you provide to your clients, it probably seems very easy to you, when in fact, it's probably that thing that's creating the most value for your clients and customers.
How often have we heard from business leaders, oh, people don't want that. They just want the product. They don't have time for meaning. They don't have time for emotion. They just want the thing. Well, that's spoken from a place, I believe, of the good times when maybe you've been able to sell to enough of those people who just want a thing. But now we're at a time when there are many things and few people buying them. So how do we stand out? How do we connect? How do we prove our relevance in a marketplace that is drastically different than it was before? Because I would argue that the things that we thought were important before are not what people are searching for anymore. Now, couldn't we give people these things, but also give them more meaning? Wouldn't that seem to be a twofer? And I think that people are going to, more and more, I think we're going to see a shift towards consumers and clients and business to business purchasers who are going to demand more. They're going to demand more from their client, from the companies that they buy from. And if the company that they buy from traditionally doesn't align with their beliefs, then they may not do business with them any longer. But this isn't new. We've seen the shift towards this over the last few years. We've watched this from our little perch, and we've seen many examples of this. I mean, even things like in Las Vegas, new hotel developments require that all of the contractors that work on these new hotel developments, or had done in the past few years, had a similar environmental rating or alliance with the environment that they did. So certain green ratings. That was because they, as a company, as a hotel development company, believed that was important. They determined that their own customers believed that was important. And then they were doing business only with those who shared those beliefs and who could meet those, kind of had the same criteria. So we see many examples of beliefs beyond technical and functional skills or specifications of a product being required. So it's going to be unfortunately a bloodbath for those that haven't thought about how they're meaningful going forward. Yeah. So I think Rooney shared an absolute truth. A pint of Guinness is an immutable truth, period, from our earlier conversation. So the new focus then, or the evolved focus of business, we believe, is meaning beyond product, is purpose beyond profit, is something deeper. What's the first step a business should take if they think, okay, my whole business landscape has shifted, I had to furlough employees, my revenue prospects are much lower than they were a month ago. You talk about this amazing thing called meaning. That's all great. Why should I do that now when I have to pay my bills? But also, if I do have to do it, what's the first step for me?
Good question. Well, I think both good questions. The first one is about short-term versus long-term. And I think it's really, really human nature right now to constrict our thinking and to focus only on what's in front of us and not to think about the long term. But that is really going to be the death knell, I think, for most of our businesses. And if we only think about revenue, we only think about profitability, we only think right in the now in terms of those things and not long-term profitability, long-term revenue, long-term loyalty, sustainability of our business and our position, then we're just not going to survive this storm and these crazy waters. We have to know where we're going, where we're headed to, and why, if we're going to make all the right tactical decisions in the moment. Otherwise, we make the wrong decisions for the wrong reason and they don't add up to anything. So I think the first thing is recognizing that we need to focus on the long term. The second thing is, as we talked about earlier, is go out and do the work to understand how you are relevant, to understand the answers to really, really important questions. Questions like, what do we stand for as a company? And what do we stand against? To understand what is that actual need, that real human need that we're addressing for our customers and for our clients. Not the products that we sell or the services that we deliver, but the human need that's behind all of those things. What's the outcome of our work? When we do our work well for our customers, what results from that at a human level? So it's those big questions that we have to ask and answer, first of ourselves, of our teams, but also of our clients, of our partners, of our community, so that we can get a 360-degree view of what our meaning and our value really is. And it's a lot to take in. It's a lot of questions to ask and answer. And then the second part is a narrowing process of really taking out, it's almost like watching Hemingway write. Take out everything that is unnecessary. Take out every theme that doesn't relate to something essential about the business and get down to just that one page, that one essential truth about your business that can unify everything and can unify everyone. And once you have that, once you've articulated that in a form that is at its most essential, then it's codifying it. It's almost like in the forge, dunk that hot molten metal into the water and let it cool. And once you have that, once it's been forged, then you can use it to unify everyone, use it to unify everything within the business. So it's a really, it's a deceivingly simple process of listening and hearing and thinking and codifying insights and then using those insights to align everything in the business. But it's super hard.
The news is that if we can, as business leaders and owners, do that now in the most challenging of times and the most dire for many of circumstances, if we can do that now, we are setting the business up for long-term growth. We're setting the business up for long-term sustainability and long-term relevance, which I think is what we're all trying to find. So now is the time. Yeah. The good news is that, like you said, there's a simple approach. It doesn't mean it's easy, but there's a simple approach to this. So I think this has been a great conversation. I think we're going to dive into this more and more, this search for meaning for a business, so that this meaning can turn into relevance, and this relevance can turn into business, and this business and relevance and meaning can turn into achieving amazing things, fulfilling amazing visions. We're going to dive into that more and more. If anybody's got any questions at any time, they can send them to us, purpose@storyforge.co. I'm going to put up the email address here. And we're here every Wednesday and Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern to answer any questions and to just talk about what we're hearing from our clients and what we're learning in these unusual times, and just to share our advice. We're trying to be as meaningful as I'm sure you are to your clients. And so hopefully this is meaningful to those of you that are tuning in every Wednesday and Friday. So thank you for that. And yeah, if you have any questions, please send them our way. Hayley, do you have any parting wisdom or thoughts for us?
No, I think that's it. We'd love to get your questions. You can email them to us. You can ask them live during these office hours, Wednesday and Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific.
Sounds great. Well, we will see you all on Friday at 11 a.m. Until then, stay safe, and we look forward to chatting with you on Friday.